This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, so LifeLock wants to remind you to update your passwords. Using the same password across multiple accounts makes you vulnerable to cybercriminals. For comprehensive identity theft protection, let LifeLock alert you to anything suspicious and fix any issues. Start protecting your identity today with a 30-day free trial at lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
It's been said that Las Vegas is less interested in its history than its future, and the culture of implosions certainly supports that view. The city does seem to go a little crazy when it comes to blowing up old buildings, or maybe blowing down old buildings is the better word. Today on CityCast Las Vegas, I'm talking with our newsletter editor, Rob Kachelriess, and longtime local culture maven, Andrew Corrali of TheList.Vegas. And as the Tropicana is about to bite the dust, we'll share the best spots to see it, and we'll also take a look back at all the implosions on the Strip. It's Wednesday, October 2nd. I'm Dayvid Figler, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. Hey guys, why do you think people get so excited about a Vegas implosion?
Oh, it's kind of a Vegas tradition at this point, isn't it? Kind of like winning a jackpot or eating at a buffet. It's something that people want to cross off their bucket list at some point in Las Vegas.
Just to fill the bucket list, huh, Rob? How about you, Andrew?
Yeah, well, they're inherently a spectacle, of course. And, Las Vegas and Las Vegans, they love a spectacle. One thing that always strikes me about implosions in Vegas is the context, right? And, buildings are imploded everywhere, all around the world all the time. But in Vegas, it's unique because it kind of reinforces, I guess, our kind of adopted civic narrative that Las Vegas is always changing, that we're protean, that we're obsessed with the new and improved. So I think an implosion in Vegas tells a different story than it does anywhere else.
Well, here's another thing, too. Like, in the past year or so, whenever you heard the word implosion in the news, it had to do with that submarine that was down there exploring the Titanic. I think Vegas is ready to reclaim the phrase implosion and make it a Las Vegas thing again that we can all celebrate instead of getting depressed by.
Wow, you think Vegas has a market on implosion?
I think we've narrowed it down to something we can call our own, even though implosions pretty much happen everywhere in the world, but just with a lot less fanfare.
Fair enough. But here's something that I've wondered about, especially with the last few implosions that we've experienced on the Strip. Why do the casinos pay for these big implosion spectacles? I mean, what's in it for them, especially the ones going out?
Well, for one, it's free marketing, right? Because it's going to attract a lot of journalists, a lot of TV coverage, a lot of social media. So it's automatically an attention grabber. And I think arguably, and, I'm not a structural engineer or a demolition engineer, but I would think that it's arguably safer and simpler than using a wrecking ball. I thought I read about the Dunes implosion, which, kicked off our history of implosions in 1993, that it would have taken like 6 months to tear down the dunes, with wrecking balls. And that would have just created traffic nightmares, all kinds of infrastructure complications. And that would in some ways, be more risky than actually imploding. So I always find that kind of interesting that it's much more immediate, destructive, but also perhaps counterintuitively safer.
I think if you look back over history, too, a lot of these older Vegas resorts, they started as motor lodges, basically drive-in hotels, and then they started building the towers above them. And as time goes on, maybe the technology gets better, construction gets better, and you want to replace it with something else. And I think to answer the question about costs, from what I understand, the taller the building is, the more cost-effective an implosion becomes. If it's just like 3 stories, you just want to leave it to a wrecking ball or an excavator or good old-fashioned construction equipment.
Although I'm guessing it's kind of expensive to take down a building no matter what. In like the Riviera, nothing went up in its place. In Tropicana, maybe nothing's going up in its place. I mean, it's hard to say. Nothing has been signed, sealed, and delivered with regards to the A's stadium. So is it just a matter of tradition? It sounds like the Tropicana is not really like making a big deal out of it itself, but others are?
Well, the A's are very much behind this implosion. and are investing into it. And right now, they've got the role of outsider. There's some questionable things about the future of the baseball stadium, but they want to endear themselves to Las Vegas. They want to make Las Vegas their home. That's the idea anyway. And what better way to make yourself feel Las Vegan than with a good old-fashioned implosion and a drone show and fireworks to go along with it.
Have we heard anything about what the Tropicana show is supposed to look like or the Implosion specials are supposed to be?
Well, the drones and fireworks are going to happen first, and then the implosion will happen immediately afterwards. And it's 2 towers. One will come down first, followed quickly by the second tower.
Interesting.
And it's supposed to take 22 seconds for the whole thing, the whole implosion, which sounds quick, but to me that sounds kind of long for an implosion.
Well, Rob, you've done some research on this particular implosion. What is the best way to catch the Boom Boom show on October 9th, right? It's the 8th going into the 9th?
Right. So to clarify, in case there's any confusion about the date, it's happening late Tuesday night after midnight on October 8th. So that means early morning, Wednesday, October 9th. The implosion itself is going to happen around 2:30, which is in line with some other previous implosions, like the Riviera, for example. And the best thing to do in watching this is, you can go down there. Some streets are going to be closed. Some sidewalks are going to be closed. But you should be able to find a spot to see it. Some areas in front of New York. The Luxor and Mandalay Bay might be available. I was down there not too long ago, and I was kind of looking from the area of New York, and the Brooklyn Bridge. And I'm like, okay, I could see where you might be able to see a corner of this down the street. But obviously, we're in the social media age. Most people are going to be watching this, if they're up that late, on Twitter or online. I know that BallyLive.com is showing it. The LVCVA is going to live stream it as well on their X channel or Twitter channel. So it's x.com/Vegas, and you can watch it there. At least 3 local TV stations will be showing it live on TV. I know Channel 13, Channel 3, and Channel 8 for sure. They'll all have live streams of some sort along with Fox 5. And if you really don't want to stay up late, obviously everyone's going to have footage of this the following morning.
Andrew, are you going to go out there, or are you going to stay home, or are you going to be asleep and just see it in the morning?
I think I'm going to stay up and watch it on TV like a boring person.
There's been a lot of chatter about, just book a hotel room and watch the implosion from there. And I did a little research with some of the hotels that are right next to the Tropicana, whether it's the MGM Grand, New York, Excalibur, Mandalay Bay. And
Oyo, the former Hooters hotel?
Yes. OYO, however you want to pronounce that.
Oyo is how I say it.
Nobody knows.
I don't know how you're supposed to say it.
But I looked at almost all of these hotels, and it looks like on appearances that they are all fully booked that night. A lot of people are booking a room to watch this and be a part of Vegas history. But also, if you play around with your button a little bit while trying to book a room, a few of these hotels are requiring longer stays. So you can't just book a night on the 8th and then check out the following morning.
Smart on their part.
You have to book maybe a 2 or 3 night stay and obviously spend a lot more money on what would be a relatively quiet week in Las Vegas otherwise.
TheList.Vegas. It's the free Las Vegas events newsletter created by locals and curated for locals. From food festivals to family events, from burlesque shows to art exhibits, if it's awesome, it's on TheList.Vegas. Every Wednesday, you'll get a list of cool things to do, dining deals, freebies, and other stuff right in your inbox. No algorithmic garbage or AI sludge here. It's 6 human curators handpicking cool events every week. TheList.Vegas was founded by Andrew Corrali. He's a native Las Vegan, longtime local journalist, and, well, he's very popular. The sportos, the motorheads, the geeks, and me, we all adore him. We think he's a righteous dude, and he's a CityCast contributor to boot. TheList.Vegas is a fun read for anyone interested in our city, and it's the best place to discover the coolest things to do in Las Vegas.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, So LifeLock wants to remind you to update your passwords. Using the same password across multiple accounts makes you vulnerable to cybercriminals. For comprehensive identity theft protection, let LifeLock alert you to anything suspicious and fix any issues. Start protecting your identity today with a 30-day free trial at lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Looking back at the historical implosions that have happened since the dunes, which ones stand out to y'all as the best and why?
Oh, I've got so many favorite implosions. I've got so many superlative implosions, but I do also want to just recognize like how funny the phrase is, historic implosions, because I think that is so sort of distinctly Las Vegas when we say that. So yeah, it's just kind of funny.
Well, also when you tell me, Andrew, let me know if you were there in person or not.
Oh, for sure. So one of my favorites was the Landmark, 1995. I wasn't there, but I've watched, videos, and of course you've seen its cameo in Mars Attacks as part of the one of the finale scenes.
The campy Tim Burton film.
Right. Yeah. The alien invasion spoof. But the Landmark had all these kind of really cool factors kind of playing into it. One, it was just a cool building, so it had an interesting shape. So I think that was just, sort of visually appealing.
The rocket ship.
Just a freaky looking building, kind of that retro futuristic kind of look.
Yeah. I mean, it itself kind of looked like a flying saucer, sort of suspended on a beam kind of look.
Yeah. A little like the Space Needle in Seattle.
Yeah. But if you watch the videos of the implosion, and I don't know if this was like, part of the scientific engineering of the implosion or what, but it actually kind of like split in half and looked like this kind of like stop motion ice cream cone cleaving like a glacier or something like that. And I just thought the way it imploded was
very unique way.
Yeah. So I always thought that was really kind of cool. So that was one of my favorites. The Aladdin, which was imploded in April 1998. I was there on East Harmon Avenue. And it was just kind of like, early in the, sort of still early in our implosion culture, right? And so it was just kind of like a street party, big bank of dust rolling down the street. But I think the funny thing about the Aladdin in retrospect is that I like to say that before it got imploded, it got roasted. And apparently, because it was so shoddily constructed, they actually had to remove explosives because they didn't need as much as they thought. And the president of Controlled Demolition Incorporated, Mark Loiseau, said, and I quote, "This is the worst construction I've ever seen. It's shoddy. It's a poor man's high-rise." So
nice.
They're originally going to use 370 pounds of explosives. They were like, this building is just shoddily made that we're going to actually reduce it down to like 232 3/4 pounds of explosives to blow up this inferior construction.
The defects were a plus.
It was pre-imploded, essentially.
Pre-imploded. Well, they also had to protect the Performing Arts Center, right? Because that was the one aspect of the Aladdin that remained.
Yeah.
Interesting. How about you, Rob? What's your faves?
I got a chance to see the Riviera in person, which was at 2:30 in the morning, I believe. And I don't know if a lot of people remember this, but they actually had two different implosions for the Riviera. I want to say they happened like a month or two apart back in 2016. And but I think as far as like Vegas level spectacle goes, I wasn't around for this one, but the Dunes, where the Bellagio now stands, was imploded in 1993. And there was a whole show to it. Like Steve Wynn was setting off the cannons at Treasure Island down the strip, which in theory set off the implosion. And if you watch the video on YouTube or elsewhere, it's like a very fiery implosion. There's a lot of spectacle to it before it comes crashing down. And the whole thing was recorded and used in a truly awful NBC television special that was all about promoting Treasure Island. It was called Treasure Island, The Adventure Begins.
Oh my gosh,
Oh my goodness.
Deep
you were
cut.
giving me an actual flashback.
Yeah, I remember that.
You can find it on YouTube. And if you want to torture yourself, please watch this. It's a terrible TV show, but this was back in
this. Also terrible.
Yes, it was back in the family-friendly phase of Las Vegas.
That's right.
So it was very kid-oriented, but the implosion of the Dunes, which should have been all about Bellagio, was really all about Treasure Island, now known as TI.
Yeah.
And I remember that show, it actually had like a narrative. It had a kid. He was like a protagonist. And he was like, there was some kind of pirate intrigue or something like that. Oh my God. Yeah, you're totally giving me flashbacks.
And Steve Wynn making some cameos here and there. I think Steve Wynn got just enough screen time to get a
Well,
SAG
he shows
card.
up in Paul Blart too, if I recall. So maybe he got union wage for that one. So I've never been to an Implosion, and I'll say because
Really? I'm
don't
shocked
want
to hear that, David.
I don't want to inhale what comes down.
True.
And I don't mean just like the building materials, which may or may not include asbestos, but just the bad vibes of years of gambling loss and
bad juju
and despair in those places.
Yeah. It's like the quintessential Vegas vape.
Yeah. Absolutely. That said, I still have favorites, all of which you've already mentioned. I do enjoy those. But mine is for a different reason. I was most saddened to lose the Stardust Hotel. And the Stardust went down in 2007. But the thing I remember most, and my dad had spent a lot of time there. I had spent a lot of time there. It was just down the street. I actually grew up equidistant from the Landmark and the Stardust Hotel. I lived right in between the two of those. And so both of those were sort of important properties in my life. But the reason that the Stardust stands out the most, and if you could find this one on the YouTube, definitely check it out. The artist Catherine Borg, B-O-R-G.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the artist Catherine Borg, who lived in Las Vegas through 2011 with her husband, who's also an artist, Stephen Hendy, did an amazing projection, like a video piece, where she went down there and recorded it and had all the sights and sounds and people talking. It's just absolutely brilliant. It really captured not just the implosion itself of the hotel, but the human reaction to it, the different people who were at the moment in time absorbing, if you will, the destruction of this storied Las Vegas building. So to me, that always has been a standout. And she did a screening of it at the Peppermill. And to my recollection, the only time I've been at the Peppermill when the television screens were used for benevolent good, which was that they all projected Catherine's piece at the same time. It was really quite the immersive moment of Vegas history right across the street from the scene of the crime, if you will.
Yeah. And I think that's, and there's also kind of an interesting thing going on there too, in that, something creative is sort of coming out of the act of destruction. And to kind of go back to an earlier comment I made, that, I think in Vegas, implosions are different because I think they are kind of seen as a creative act in that you're not just thinking about the building that's going away, but your thought immediately turns to what's going to replace this? What's the next chapter? What's the next,
It's the evolution of Vegas. It's really, replacing the old with the new.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, so I think there's something, always kind of almost optimistic about implosions in Vegas, for better or worse, that maybe adds, some element of creativity to it, I suppose.
You're not as sad for what's going away as much as you're happy for what's to come.
Exactly.
In theory, anyway.
How important are implosions to Las Vegas in particular, especially versus other cities? What makes it so woven into the fabric of Las Vegas?
Well, it's so intimately tied with our signature attraction, which is, the Las Vegas Strip, and our billboard for, the entertainment capital of the world. So I think they're important in the sense, too, because they broadcast to the world at large that, hey, we're always reinventing. We're always coming up with something new and zany. And even when we're clearing the ground to create something new and zany, we're, making that act into a spectacle itself. And so in a way, I think it tells, the rest of the world that, hey, Vegas is, we're still trying to be on top of our game and we're always reinventing, and stay tuned because here's what's coming next.
And just remind people that we're still Vegas.
Yeah, I just wish there was a better way to maintain our relevance in the world than, getting rid of the stuff that, maybe prematurely is going away. I will probably chain myself to Caesar's Palace where the circus is,
Well, so
no.
and so that's a question. I have a question for you, David. So, do you think that that we will hit some kind of turning point in whether it's like I don't know, demographics or market appetites or something like that, where it is actually considered more cost effective to keep the buildings we have, adaptively reuse them, or lean into the historic nature of some of these older resorts, like Caesar's, and so many others, Circus, right? Where becoming, historic isn't a liability and a death sentence, and it's, more of an attraction. And I often wonder, is like, yeah, when will it become appealing for, visit the historic Las Vegas Strip, right?
Yeah.
Will that ever be a thing?
I think that the time frame of nostalgia in general, in United States culture at least, has narrowed to the point where anything that's older than 5 years old doesn't really hit the radar as far as worth preserving too much. Mm-hmm. And I think as long as, marketing is king as it relates to Strip City, I don't see a change of opinion. In fact, just maybe leaning into more bigger, better, newer, more spheres coming around than old circus tents staying around. So that's my take.
Well, what about the Sahara? Is that a glimpse of optimism?
I think that's an anomaly.
The property got sold. It changed its name. They changed it back to the Sahara.
Yeah.
So maybe there's an appetite for history.
I don't know how well or not it's doing, but it doesn't usually get mentioned when people are talking about the 10 or even 20 most interesting things happening on the Strip. I rarely hear Sahara mentioned, sadly.
And on that note of pessimism,
as we bid farewell to the Tropicana, let me also bid farewell to you, Rob and Andrew. Thanks for joining us on CityCast Las Vegas.
It was fun.
Great being here.
And that's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed the show, you can go tell a friend, you could rate the show, you could leave us a review, and you could subscribe to our morning newsletter, Hey Las Vegas. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Till then, stay lucky.
Yeah, don't breathe the dust.
Goodbye, Tropicana.
Don't breathe the Vegas vape.